stage, yo, you ask some more. I'm on the edge, I know the ledge. I work real hard to collect my cash. Take your time. When I'm going for mine. Open your ears and you will hear it. I tell you this, cause there's no limit. The limits are loud cause there's much crowd. Microphone check as I choose my route. I'm playing on the road, I've got no fear. The sound from my mouth is a rep you hear. No village too deep, no mountain too high. We stood.
All right. Hey, Doki. What's going on, brother? Yeah, so this is going to be really interesting. It's kind of a takeoff from yesterday. And stop sharing here. Actually, yeah, stop sharing. So the interesting thing, these guys just can't keep out of their way. No limits. Praise God. No valley too high, no mountain too high. All that, but atheists have their thing. There's no limits in evolution, apparently. No limits whatsoever. But let me just bring this up here. This is the interesting stuff about how and why and where everything is. It should be right there. So we'll just do this. And we'll pop this guy up. Let's see if everything's showing here. Yes. And we're on. So, is life abundant in the universe? So this guy here, Alex A. Rich, distinguished investigator, Department of Molecular Biology at Harvard Medical School, puts this together. Jack Szostak. And he said, is it easy or hard for life to emerge from the chemistry of early planets? In the lab, we tried to work out a complete step-by-step plausible pathway all the way from simple chemistry to more complex chemistry to simple biology. And if we can actually show that there's a continuous pathway to life with no super hard steps along the way, then we could conclude that it's likely that there's abundant life out there. Okay, first of all, let me say this. Nope. So this whole chemistry to biology thing, this is very fascinating. They've been trying this for 50, 60 years, going back to lab work and things like that I was involved in. Oh, if we can only get the right chemistry, if we could only do that, we could, build life in a petri dish. Okay, so let's say you did make that cell. You've got nothing in about 2 minutes. So you make this, how are you going to keep it alive? How are you going to grow that thing? What is its area? I mean, you have the gametes, you have the sperm, and you have the ova from the woman, and those meet, but those are two separate DNA strands that meet, that have a lot of information inside them. So how did you get the information into that fabricated cell? That's the main focus of this whole idiocy called evolution. And it all started with that Darwin fellow, but it started previous to him with a couple other people, but he capitalized on it. He was also in the royal court, along with, so you got Sir Charles Darwin, and you got Sir Galton, who was his cousin, and you had Lyell, who was the geologist. And obviously, we found some fossils in a stone that was about 100 feet off the ground. Well, that's time, because we're going to take a yardstick and we're going to say that that's a couple feet above the ground. So it must have been billions of years. Let's take some dynamite to that, see how long that column lasts. But anyway, next little gem here is our progress is being accelerated by new people, unencumbered by the old misconceptions and full of fresh ideas. Yeah, they're idiots coming into the class. They know nothing of chemistry. They know nothing of biology. And they're going to say, well, what I learned in high school was, or where this came from, was a textbook. And yes, the chemical soup out in the pond, when it rained for thousands and millions of years and it rained on the rocks, and the rocks are made of minerals, they deposited themselves into the primordial soup and they all coagulated together to make first life. And that's what that's this, no misconceptions. They're already brainwashed. I love how they write this thing. Yeah, of course, you have an agenda here, and it's probably a government grant, probably worth about $2 million. And you're going to run that out for a whole year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 25. We'll see what happens there. So using new methods and instrumentation and creating a new systems approach are fostering surprising connection between materials and process previously thought to be unrelated. Well, they are unrelated. Just because you think they're related, and you've got, your little chart over here saying, okay, Big Bang, and then over millions and millions and millions of years. I like how they do that. It's just so, connect the dots. And isn't that what we learn in preschool and elementary school, connecting the dots to make the picture of whatever it is? So then it goes from fish, to higher life. You got the little salamander growing the tail, and then you have some walking type alligator looking thing that turns into some sort of a marmot or some weasel. And then, oh, boom, all of a sudden, here we go. Monkey man to Lucy to Homo sapiens sapien is what we are now. So this is the areas that, they attack. Astronomers search for undiscovered planets that may be hospitable to life using special instruments designed by experimental physicists. Baloney. You go off of what it looks like. You wouldn't know what mineral. Let's say we were on the moon, okay, and we're looking at Earth. So we're on the moon, we're looking at Earth. You couldn't tell what that thing's made out of. What? Because you got some brown dirt there. It could be smog. Look at LA. Can't even see the ground from the satellites on certain days with all the smog. So that, the astronomers, you just look at the stars and you try and figure that one out. Then we got the geochemists. So geo, those are the chemists that work with the Earth. Geochemists, right? So you got all of the periodical chart with all of the oxygen, nitrogen, and all the way through plutonium and all that fun stuff. And it goes by weight. So they analyze sedimentary rocks on Earth and Mars. Now, that's a stretch. Personally, I don't think we've ever been to Mars. I think they're out there somewhere in Utah, maybe Nevada, somewhere on the borders there of Nevada and Utah, to uncover planetary process and environment. They've never brought anything. It's because apparently they can't make it to the moon. So that's why we haven't had any moon launches in 50, 60 years, because of that apparently they've lost the trajectory. I got videos on that. I've got actual NASA people saying, I've got written papers on it. And so anyway, so geochemistry, see you later. You're just looking at rocks and you're figuring it out because you have to have a spectrometer, check it out and everything else. But, I'll continue on. Chemists and chemical biologists consider the simple molecule on primitive planets and focus on the route to assembling complex self-replicant. This is baloney. Straight out fabrication. You put the microscopes in front of the kids in the lab. You give them a nice little slide under there so they can look at the little swamp juice that's in there, so they can pick out some amoebas and see how they eat the sugars and everything that are around it. And that's what you got. Chemists and chemical biologists. Okay, fair enough. We'll go on to the next one. Molecular biologists. Now we're getting into the microbiology, the small into the interverse. They concentrate on the ultimate leap, how biological evolution can emerge from the chemistry on the host planets. I'm going to stop sharing that, crank on over here. Hey, Dana, how are you? Greetings to you. I'll put in a hello. I'm not great at typing while I'm on this thing, but. And who else we got here? Just Doki Doki and Dana. Nice. Is it Dana or Dana? I know that there's a drink that's similar, and I just call it Dana. Anyway, yeah, they say they lost trajectory. They did. I can pull that one up. It's so funny. The NASA astronauts, and they also said we can't go 12,000 feet, or 12,000, 12,000 miles above Earth's orbit. We cannot get out of Earth's orbit. That's why every time a space shuttle goes up or a satellite, it's in Earth's orbit. So getting outside. So there must be something. I'm not going to say it's a solid rocket or anything like that, some sort of a canopy that keeps them in. I want to say space is not what they tell us space is. Now, okay, it's speculation on my part. I've never been in outer space, so how would I know? But I know there's plenty of water on Earth, and water, you can float in water. And a lot of these videos and how they train the astronauts is in a big, huge swimming pool. I don't think that's by mistake. There's something about the weightlessness and a mass that is inside space that is probably similar to water. Maybe a little bit less thick, but similar to water. And you can't breathe without an apparatus. So, so much fraud. And it's all Frankenstein. That's where we're going with this thing here. So I'm going to play this little clip here. It's very interesting. So let me make sure I do all this correctly. Is that the one? Yes. So let me blow this bad boy up. We can go full screen for all you guys.
You've tweeted that, quote, origin of life research is a scam. So if this is Shakespeare, can we analyze this word? Why is the origin of life research a scam? Aren't you kind of doing origin of life research?
Okay, it was tongue in cheek, but yeah, I think, and I meant it as tongue in cheek. I'm not doing.
He meant it as tongue in cheek. Well, this is before his run-in to Dr. John Tour.
The origin of life research. I'm trying to make artificial life. And I also want to bound the likelihood of the origin of life on Earth, but more importantly, to find origin of life elsewhere. But let me directly address the tweet. There are many, many good chemists out there doing origin of life research, but I want to nudge them, and I think they're brilliant. There's no question. The chemistry they are doing, their motivation is great. So what I meant by that tweet is saying that maybe they're making assumptions about saying if only I could make this particular type of molecule, say this RNA molecule, or this phosphodiester, or this other molecule, it's going to somehow unlock the origin of life. And I think that origin of life has been looking at this for a very long time. And whilst I think it's brilliant to work out how you can get to those molecules, I think that chemistry and chemists doing origin of life could be nudged into doing something even more profound. And so the argument I'm making, it's a bit like right now, let's say, I don't know, the first Tesla that makes its way to, I don't know, into a new country in the world. Let's say there's country X that has never had a Tesla before, and they get the Tesla.
Russia.
And they take the Tesla, and what they do is they take the Tesla apart and say, we want to find the origin of cars in the universe, and say, okay, how did this form and how did this form? And they just randomly keep making till they make the door, they make the wheel, they make the steering column, and all this stuff. And they say, oh, that's the route, that's the way cars emerged on Earth. But actually, we know that there's a causal chain of cars going right back to Henry Ford and the horse and carriage, and before that, maybe where people were using wheels. And I think that obsession with the identities that we see in biology right now are giving us a false sense of security about what we're looking for. And I think the origin of life chemistry is in danger of not making the progress that it deserves, because the chemists are doing this. The field is exploding right now. There's amazing people out there, young and old, doing this, and there's deservedly so more money going in. You know, I used to complain there's more money being spent searching for the Higgs boson that we know exists.
And now you know. Plenty of money. We're rich. No wonder he gets to wear that $150 little sports coat there and got the nice wired rim glasses and the slick back hair. Yeah, you look like a bunny rabbit, bro. Yeah, it's because you're gaming the system. And you just said it.
Exist in the origin of life. You know, why is that? The origin, we understand the origin of life. We're going to actually work out what life is. We're going to be able to bound the likelihood of finding life elsewhere in the universe. And most important for us, we are going to...
No, you're not. You're not doing any of that. What you're doing is you're getting a bunch of undergrads to come into your lab, fool around a little bit, write a couple of papers that you've just made up out of thin air, and then you get your grant money. It's fantastic. It's a great scam. Love it. And you are a crook, sir.
Going to know or have a good idea what the future of humanity looks like. You know, we need to understand that although we're precious, we're not the only life forms in the universe. Well, that's my very strong impression. I have no data for that. It's just right now a belief. And I want to turn that belief into a more than a belief.
So, more than a belief. Faith? Things hoped for? Sounds like a religion you got there, Mr. Lee Cronin. Leroy, I should say. It's actually not Lee, it's Leroy. So anyway, let's get back into this guy. He's a crook, plain and simple.
Belief by experimentation. But coming back to the scam is if we just make this RNA, we've got this, you know, this fluke event. We know how that's simple. Let's make this phosphodiester, or let's make ATP or ADP. We've got that part nailed. Let's now make this other molecule, another molecule. And how many molecules are going to be enough? And then...
All right, you, sir, are a liar. The ATP only comes from the mitochondria. How are you going to make the mitochondria? You have to input it into a fake cell. It's just amazing. So how did the cell survive, first of all, without the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell? It makes the androgen triphosphate in the body so that you can even bat an eye and tell these lies by moving your lips. Every second you're using glucose. It's like an atomic bomb going off inside your cells, so you can think in your brain and you can talk it out of your mouth and flip your arms around like you know exactly what you're doing. You are a fraud, sir. You just said we already have the RNA. Yeah, you stole it. You stole it from another cell and you bought it. That's why it costs you so much for these grants. And you're stealing off the taxpayers' backs is what you're doing. That money should be going to a bunch of other things other than your pocket, along with all your little 100 other people.
The reason I say this is when you go back to Craig Venter, when he invented his life form, Syndia, this minimal plasmid, is a myoplasma, something, I don't know the name of it, but he made this wonderful cell and said, I've invented life.
This guy is such the scientist. I can't remember what it's called. You're in it every single day. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I think you're picking up the little co-ed and you're taking her whining and dining her. I don't see a ring on your finger, bro. And I think that's why you got into this. You get hot chicks working in your lab. You offer them a job and money. And if you go out with me, I'll make sure that your dissertation gets moved to the top of the stack.
Not quite. He facsimiled the genome from this entity and made it in the lab, all the DNA, but he didn't make the cell. He had to take an existing cell that has a causal chain going all the way back to Luca, and he showed when he took out the gene, the genes, and put in his genes, synthesized, the cell could boot up. But it's remarkable that he could not make a cell from scratch. And even now, today, synthetic biologists cannot make a cell from scratch because there's some contingent information embodied outside the genome in the cell And that is
That would be God. That would be God. And here's the problem with your little thing there, Mr. Cronin. We can't make the cell. Well, because in Jesus Christ, all things consist. Just read Colossians 1. It's Colossians chapter 1, just one time. Everything is consist. You ever hear of laminin? Laminin holds all your skin together. And the way that is projected is actually looks like a cross, the way that is made. It's just fabulous. So you won't admit God, but you're going to play God to everybody that's under you at your university. Got it.
It's just incredible. So there's lots of layers to the scam.
Now I'm going to play this. Let me back that up. I don't think it was playing. There we go.
Christian faith. But that's not one of those talks tonight. Some of y'all might think that this is about creationism.
Yeah, sorry
evolution.
about that. Didn't have the thing clicked.
There is not going to be any God talk here tonight. Rather, we are having Dr. Tour talk about the state of the research on the origin of life, abiogenesis. So, if you aren't a Christian here, we welcome you. And we always welcome you to come to any of our weekly meetings. We normally meet here in this room, 6:30 on Tuesdays. So if you're a Christian, welcome. If you're not a Christian, you are more than welcome to join us. And now let's give a big round of applause for Dr. Tour.
Okay, with intent, there's going to be nothing about God in this. I think I mentioned right at the end, I write the word God to say, you did not hear me speak about God at all. So when people say that Tour uses God of the gaps arguments, or Tour has to bring God into this, or Tour has to bring in miracles into this, they're wrong, okay? They're wrong. All right, now, I am locked and loaded, and it's not because of you. It's because of my position on these things has brought attack from people on the internet. And
James Tour is on fire. He he makes so many patents. He makes everything, and these people are just digging in on him because he has so many companies that he's made himself by doing the right thing. And I'll just let him speak, but I'm so proud of this guy.
An attack from the scientific community. That's why I am locked and loaded. So if you think that I am being hard on people, trust me, I am an angel compared to the way that they treat me. Okay? So because I know in this day and age, you say one little thing that might, ruffle some feathers, and you look at people like, boy, they should be canceled. But it's going to happen tonight. All right? So there was a video put out a couple of years ago by Professor Dave, it was a guy named Dave Farina, and that has 786,000 views as of today. And he talks a lot about my motivation for doing these things. I was psychoanalyzed, and he knew things about me that I didn't even know about myself at all. And so I came out with a 13-part series. It's actually 14 parts because one of the parts is A and B, but say a 13-part series on abiogenesis. And so you can listen to all of those parts. And so you see, I don't have the YouTube following that he has. This has 43,000 views in the last year. In 2 years, he has 786,000. So, if you guys would just click on it a few times, bring the numbers up, that'd be helpful. And what I also did is, so you don't have to click on all the different parts, you can just click once, and now it's 9 hours of content. And you can just listen to it. Because I had to go through the science. It's just strictly science. I'm going through the science. And there's a lot involved there. And so then he came out with a 2-part series on me again. Now, these have got like almost 800,000 views, 900,000 views. And again, he says I'm still clueless. So we will address that, not so much tonight, but that will be addressed in due time. So it's because I have a day job that I can't just run in and make YouTube videos.
So yeah, all those views though, James Tour is getting out there. And James Tour has some pretty awesome numbers as well. But could you imagine a Jewish boy going off to Syracuse University, finding Jesus Christ, making it to this level while he's preached Christ all the way up? This guy is in favor of God. God's got the favor on this guy. And he can bridge the gap between Christian and Jew. This is beautiful.
And this is not easy because I have to actually read papers and go through the data on the papers. But he brought in, what was really good is he brought in 3 experts. And so now I can go after the experts because I'm not going after a YouTuber who it's very hard to engage. It's going like, you put a hook in Jell-O and it comes out. But I'm going after chemists. Only 2 of those people that he brought on knew that they were being brought on. One of them didn't even know. So I was going to go after the 2 today to show really their work on abiogenesis and what it's really like. But I only have time for 1 because it was so rich. There was so much to go through. So abiogenesis is the origin of life from non-living matter. And to construct any convincing theory of abiogenesis, we must take into account the condition of the earth about 4 billion years ago. These are not my definition. These are textbook dictionary definitions. All right. So this is origin of life. This has nothing to do with evolution, which is life from life. All right, what are the characteristics of life? Responsiveness to the environment, growth and change, ability to reproduce. You have a metabolism and breathe, maintain homeostasis, being made of cells and passing traits on to offspring. Homeostasis is the steady internal physical and chemical condition. All right, again, not my definition. This is what we've got to go after. All right, molecules don't care about life. Organisms care about life. Chemistry, on the contrary, is utterly indifferent to life. Without a biological entity acting on them, molecules have never been shown to move toward life. Never. All right, so a lot of people have tried to make molecules that are reminiscent of the molecules of life. For example, Eschen, Moser, Sutherland, Devaraj, Pauner, Krishnamurti. And they are origin of life researchers, OOL, origin of life researchers. What they do is they purchase some chemicals, generally in high purity. They mix those together in water in high concentrations, really high concentrations, compared to the way they might be dispersed on an early Earth, or in a specific order, they attain mixtures of compounds that might resemble a precursor for one of the 4 classes of compounds you need for life. You need 4 classes of compounds: carbohydrates, nucleic acids, amino acids, and lipids. You need those 4 classes. They publish a paper making bold assertions, even though before they do that, all of their compounds are stereoscrambled. They have very little control of relative stereochemistry, no control of absolute stereochemistry, and so they couldn't work anyway. And they'll publish a paper much like Miller and Urey did in 1952. So we're 70 years into this since Miller-Urey experiment, which is a great experiment, I think. It was a great experiment where a bunch of the amino acids formed. So they'll watch, they'll publish these papers, and then the layperson will say, you see, scientists understand this because the press has turned up the knobs, and then they encourage a generation of science textbook writers, and then you hear about these primordial soup models, which are a bunch of nonsense. We have zero evidence for that. The problem with these is this, that molecules decompose. Molecules that compose living systems almost always show homochirality. When you're building molecular systems, you need constant redesigns. So if you hook something on wrongly, you can't go back. Once you hook a moiety on, it's very hard to take it back off again. The synthetic reactions don't know how to stop. Molecules don't know what they're going toward. They don't, let's move toward life today. They don't know that. They're just moving along. And if they make an intermediate that's kind of interesting, kind of in your life, it's going to change into something else the next day under the same conditions. Molecules don't know where to stop. Time, although claimed to be the savior of abiogenesis, is actually the enemy because molecules decompose. You get a molecule, it's good, and then under the same conditions that it formed, it goes bad. All the time. And molecules don't sit around saying, I think I'll sit here for 1 billion years and wait for the next substrate to come. No, they oxidize. And if you say the Earth was reducing, fine. You had a lot of ammonia, which is more degrading than oxygen very often. Prebiotic systems don't have the ability to purify things, and they do relay synthesis. This was the origin of life researchers do. Reagent addition order is essential. It's like making a cake. You can't say, well, let's just put the icing into the flour. No, there's an order in which you have to go. And to build things, you have to control temperature, pressure, solvent, light or no light, pH, what the gas atmosphere is over this. Complex molecule building is hard. The characterization at each step is critical. In biological systems, there's characterization. It doesn't run spectroscopy, but you have enzymes that check things. And if it's not the right thing, then they'll pull it out and they'll chop it up and they'll use it to build something else. Mass transfer is the killer of everything. If you start with a kilo of something, kilo would be a lot if you had a particular thing. And how many steps could you bring that kilo before you would have nothing left? Because each yield might only be 1 or 2% yield. And all of a sudden you have very little material left. And the mass transfer problem to anybody who does synthesis, you run out of material. You try to optimize material and yields, and it's still hard. Nature keeps no laboratory notebook. So say it's going along, and hey, this is moving like, and now it runs.
All right, I'm going to put a pause onto that because I don't want this just to be about James Tour, but we can all go watch it on YouTube. He's got a fantastic channel. A lot of his symposiums that he's been recording. I don't know if any of you caught the debate between him and Farina. That Farina is, I don't want to say it because it's a bad thing to say, but he is just a stick in the mud. He's you know why? Because he doesn't have Jesus Christ and he doesn't have truth in his heart. Just like, Taylor the Snake last night. That guy he has no scruples. He has nothing. He is a degenerate. I mean, these people coming after Dr. James Tour for all the wonderful things that he's doing and not only the medical practices, but what he's doing for construction by strengthening the cement, because we all know that cement, if you've ever laid any, it has to be a certain way, and it doesn't last as long as it used to. They have cement blocks back from the Roman era that are still around, and we can't even keep buildings up with the cheap stuff we use. But his nanotechnology with the graphene goes in and it bonds with the cement that not only makes it stronger, but it makes it more long lasting. So you don't have to go in and replace this stuff. They've used it for roads now, and it's better than asphalt. Asphalt gives away, but then you have the rocks that pop up and all the other things. So the graphene strengthens that cement. So I'm going to take that one off, and then I'm going to go back to my my PowerPoint here. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. So let me go up, wrong one. I have to use it here. There we go. All right, so we're back on this. We went to the molecular biologists and all of this, but I just want to continue on so that we get to the heart of the matter here. So as recently as the middle of the 20th century, so 1900s, many scientists thought that the first organisms were made of self-replicating proteins. This is an out. This is no. Many scientists, no, that's a lie. Very few scientists thought that the first organisms were, because you got to think, in the 19th century, this is saying the 20th century, in the 19th century, Louis Pasteur and all these other biologists, and they didn't call them that back then, but all these Christians that came out and saved lives by infectious disease control. The 1850s, they figured out that when the babies were dying in that particular hospital, the doctor said, no, we have to wash our hands from going patient to go delivering a baby, because delivering a baby at that time was not number one priority. Now that we know with prenatal care and the natal care inside a hospital, we know that, you know, this is what has to be done, is that you know, you have to take care of the child, because you touch that child, you know, with you just worked on somebody, but you have some blood on you, it could cause problems, things like that. So wash your hands before you go and touch another person after you've done some operation on somebody. And you know, that dropped the infant mortality rate at that hospital by 99%. So you had basically, out of the deaths that were coming out of there, it was like one out of every 10 children were dying in there. And they were wondering, oh, what's going on? You know, these people, you know. Well, praise God that it all got found out. So basically, after Francis Crick and James Watson, so Watson and Crick showed that DNA is the base. Now, this is an evolution side. Okay, I didn't write this. I pulled it off the net because this is what the other gentleman wrote. That's why I've got all the little bugs all the way to man over here on the right side. So after Francis Crick and James Watson showed that DNA is the basis for genetic transmission in the 1950s, yeah, they did. They found DNA. So many researchers began to favor nucleotides over proteins as the your molecules. Okay. Well, yeah, nucleic acids. It's diroxynucleic acid. Gosh, can't even say it. Diribose oxynucleic acid. There you go. Many researchers began to favor nucleic acid over proteins, of course, and the UR molecules. But there was a major hitch in this scenario. DNA can make neither proteins nor copies of itself without the help of the catalytic proteins called enzymes. Well, you got RNA involved in that as well, soon to find out. The fact turned the origin of life into a classic chicken or egg puzzle. Which came first, proteins or DNA? Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say it was created all at the same time. There was no first, proteins or DNA. The DNA and the proteins were all together at one simultaneous moment. So what Zozak is interested in finding out is how many different recipes, the way they word this stuff, how many different recipes, billions, there are for making life. How did life arise here on earth? God said, let there be light. And then on the sixth day, he created man. So, and might some other planet build life in a different way? I mean, like the nose on your derriere. Okay. Work in his lab is starting to yield some answers. Yeah, some bad answers that they don't want to answer those questions that they asked. Oh, how can you do that? And then the answer comes, no, you can't do that. And they don't want to answer to those answers. So RNA, DNA's helpmate remains the most popular answer to this conundrum, just as it was when I wrote in the beginning. Uh-oh, what? When I read through this, I was like, really? You said that? You wrote that? Okay. So certain forms of RNA, and you have mRNA, which is a big problem right now for vaccine, can act as their own enzymes, snipping themselves in two and splicing themselves back together again. If RNA could act as an enzyme, then it might be able to replicate itself without help from proteins. RNA could serve as gene and catalyst, egg and no, it can't. And that's why starting to yield some answers. But the answer you don't like is that we understand that the RNA cannot exist without the DNA and cannot exist without the proteins from the DNA that was made from first. So you guys are stealing money because the people that are giving you the money are just a bunch of nutballs sitting up there at Capitol Hill, and they don't know diddly squat. But this is the way it happened. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. There is none good but God. But God said good, so that's coming from the good person saying good, so he knows what good is. And that's Genesis 1:21. Now I'm going to skip a couple, go to verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth on the earth. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. There was a atheist that was in the chat yesterday. I don't know if you saw him, Doki, but he was going on about, did he have dominion over the deepest whale in the ocean? And it doesn't say that. It says dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over that. But the dominion is not an iron fist dominion. What it is caretaking, and also as a husbandman. You know, so when Adam was made, he was made to tend the garden when he was put in there. And then God put him to sleep, took the rib out of his side, which those two ribs, the lower ribs, if you take them out, will grow back. It's like your liver. Anybody who has a bad liver heading towards them in 10 years because you're an alcoholic and you've got a bunch of other problems with liver, they can take half of your liver out and put it in a petri dish and save it for later. It will grow back. Your liver will grow back, and your rib will grow back, which is very interesting because ribs have a lot of blood in them, and liver is kind of like the the bypass for a lot of cleaning up. Let's put it that way. So let me go back to this. So verse 7. So God created man in his own image, and the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So dominion is not telling it what to do. It's taking care of the waters. You know, there's nothing wrong with clean water. There's nothing wrong with clean air. There's nothing wrong with, good food to eat that's not filled with pesticides. There's a lot of goodness in that. E. coli getting onto lettuce from farmers, from the farmhands that are picking the lettuce, and they don't want to go all the way to the bathroom. And so that's a problem. But he was a husbandman, and he was also the caretaker of what Earth was until they ate from the tree. So I'll stop sharing that. And go back to okay. So this is it's the first time I ever came up with it. But this is Scientific American. I mean, Scientific American is one of the best things you can actually read. A lot of times it does have a really leftist slant and Greenpeace stuff and this and that, but they will tell you the truth. And that's what this is all about. And, they tell you they're having problems with this. So exactly 20 years ago, I wrote an article for Scientific American that in draft form had the headline above. My editor nixed it. So we went with something less dramatic in the beginning. Scientists have their, this is what scientists having their hard time agreeing on when, where, most important, how life first emerged on Earth. So that editor is gone now. So I get to use my old headline, which is even more apt today than it was before. You can set. So he wrote this, a while ago, 2 decades ago, 20 years ago. And because of what's going on in the world, it's more appropriate today than it was 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, it was getting bigger as far as the whole evolution thing. And, that's Kent Hovind started around that time with his, and there were a few others that were talking about it. There were still some older scientists that were creationists that were alive, astronomers as well, and cosmologists. And they've all died out. That you go to any schools anymore, universities I'm talking about, you try and find somebody that's going to a doctorate program for anything space related. It's 99.9. They just don't believe God. They don't want to know about God. But so it's even more apropos for today. So Dennis Overby just wrote a status report in the New York Times on research into the life's origins based on a conference on the topic at Arizona State. Who's at Arizona State? Lawrence Krauss. There we go. Geologists, chemists, astronomers, biologists are all stumped as ever for the riddle of life. After its formation 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was bombarded for millions and billions and quadrillion years of huge meteorites, which would have wiped out any fledgling organisms. Researchers have found evidence of microbial life dating back 3 to 5 billion years ago, suggesting that life emerged fairly quickly. Like Athena, spring from the head of Zeus, as one scientist quoted by Overby put it. But how exactly did chemistry first make the transition to biology? It never did, and it won't. You can't. You can't hypothesis remains a problem. The RNA and its components are difficult to synthesize under the best of circumstances. And they cannot do it in a lab. They have to buy things. Close that one out. Go back to this one real quick. This is Lee Cronin talking about his baloney on the is that not working? Yeah, I wanted to get that. Darn it. Cronin kind of backpedaling. Rice University. Rice University is a very, very good place where James Tour works. And this is it. I don't know if any of you guys have seen episode. Have you guys ever seen episode 1 of Dave Farina's deal with James Tour? Anybody? Okay, I'll just go ahead and all right, making sure there's nothing in there that's going to hurt me. I'll just copy it to the There we go. I'm back. Yep. Okay, now I can get this done. Is my sound working? Everything going now? Woo! I just switched over my phone. House internet went out. Somebody must have run into a telephone pole. All right. Sorry about all that. That wasn't sound. Yeah, I've got a Nice. Is the sound working? No, sound's not working. There it is. What's going on here? Hello? There we go. Everything seems to be lagging or something. I can't get that other thing to play. So let's do this all over again. Okay, got that. All right, let's check it out. All right. Oh, okay. I don't know. Something's wrong with the Brother Timothy. Something wrong with the internet. Back on though. Don't know. That was crazy. So let's try this one more time. I'm actually going to close this out. Reopen it. Oh, now it's working. Huh. Why is that not? Try that. Oh, I can't hear anything. Okay. Well, I found out what was going on wrong. Something wrong with my earphones. So I'm going just with the computer. So if I'm a little bit robot-y, sorry about that. And then so I'm back in. All right, it's all working now. Let's go to present. There you are, Dana. Yeah, sorry about all that. Something to do with my my headphones. All right, here we go.
Kinds of molecules in the primordial soup.
I'm boiling up some primordial soup. Your entire civilization. It all begins right here in this little pond of goo.
I've got a series for you coming up here. This is in rebuttal to Dave Farina's two-part series on abiogenesis, where he again had everything wrong. Every slide he had wrong.
Hey everyone, so some of you are aware of my
Greatest thing that he did, though, is he brought on three so-called experts to talk about origin of life, so we can go right after their research and I dissect their research, the research of the experts. But what Dave Farina didn't notice is that every argument that he had absolutely fell apart. So this first series is going to just go after the experts and then show how Dave Farina was wrong on every one of his points. But then we'll have a second series after this series that will go after every other part of Dave Farina's videos where he can't even get the structure of soap right. So this is going to be an amazing series. Again, without ad hominem attacks. I'm not attacking him. I'm not saying anything bad about who he is or what his motives are. And he keeps trying to be the great scientific communicator, but he's unable to do it. So I hope you enjoy this series. If you like it, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and you'll see when each new section is coming out. Last year, I made a video about James Tour, a chemist and creationist who speaks out against origin of life research. He didn't like it much, so he decided to make a 14-part series about how dumb I am. I never called Dave Farina dumb. If he came out looking dumb after my presentation, I mean, I just presented the data. The only thing that I said is he's wrong, he's wrong, he's wrong. Then he says he really pulled out all the stops, parading all of his classical fallacious talking points and plenty of bold-faced lies and deliberate misrepresentations of scientific research peppered in for good measure. Honestly, I was rather shocked at how stupid it was. With such material to work with, I ended up with quite a lot to say in response and had to split it into 2 parts. First of all, I'm not going to partake in the ad hominem attacks, nor am I going to psychoanalyze Dave Farina and why he does what he does. Dave believes that the comments by the researchers that work in the origin of life. I have repeatedly said that people who work in the area of origin of life write many things in their papers that just are not true according to the data in that very paper.
And this misunderstanding has come because of the projections of those who work in the area of origin of life. They do one little thing and then they extrapolate it, and then they work with the press to ramp it up even more, and they project as if they really know it. And so the layperson reads this and says, you see, scientists understand.
But I don't think it's fair to put the blame on scientists. The blame belongs to the press. The blame is with the media outlets, not with the scientists.
I think the blame is not just with the media outlets. The blame is also with the scientists who work in the area of origin of life. And that's what I hope to show you. What Dave then does is he brings on experts and he believes what they say. So we'll go right after his experts. Dave claims that the reason I can't understand origin of life is because I am a synthetic organic chemist.
Origin of life research is an interdisciplinary field that includes not just areas of chemistry James has no experience with, but also physics, astronomy, geology, information theory, probability, statistics, and yet other fields.
Thanks for watching, guys.
He can understand it. I don't know what his area of expertise is. He can understand it, but I can't because I'm a synthetic chemist. Because I'm a synthetic chemist, I can't understand it. So what does Dave Farina do? He invites in 3 experts to come and speak with him. Interestingly, every one of those experts that he brings in is a synthetic chemist. Oh, the irony. None of the experts that he brings in commented on any of the things that I specifically said in that series. None of them. I had that vetted by 2 PhD chemists. In the end, interestingly, will show that his experts end up agreeing with me and not with Dave on multiple occasions. But Dave never noticed it because he's unable to understand the chemistry. For example, he brings in Bruce Lipschitz of UC Santa Barbara as one of his experts. He says Bruce Lipschitz is commenting on my video where I talked about protein synthesis being impossible in water, that protein synthesis doesn't happen in water. Interestingly enough, Bruce Lipschitz is a friend of mine. I have known him for 35 years, more than 35 years, almost 40 years I've known Bruce. Bruce said he never saw my video. He had sent Dave his video on some other topic. He was not responding to the video that I had done. But Dave put it in there as if it was from me. But Dave calls me a liar. I'm not going to say anything about Dave, but interestingly enough, Bruce didn't even know it was put in there. We'll look at that in detail. He brings in another expert. He brings in Steve Benner, founder of the Foundation for Applied Molecular Evolution. Steve Benner made 0 comments on the series that I had. He didn't talk about anything. I confronted him on this, and I pushed him on it. I said, look, you said in the video that you watched all 10 hours of this. You didn't respond to anything in the video. Did you really watch all 10 hours? He says, well, you know, it was on, but I was doing other things. Oh, it was on, but he was doing other things. So he turned on one video, had it playing, but was doing other things. When that got done, he turned on video number 2, had it playing, but was doing other things. Okay, so we'll look at Steve Benner and we'll look at the very work that he cites. Why do I have to wait this long? Because Steve Benner talked about work that was done by a researcher in his group, Biondi, And I wanted to see the publication. I wrote to him for a copy of the publication. He wouldn't send it. I said, where is it published? It wasn't published. It didn't publish till more than a year after the video that he talked about. Brings in a third expert, Lee Cronin, who calls me nefarious. Yet he himself never answered any of the obstacles. He loves his primordial soup model. He says it's a good model. Well, then ask him, how do you go from the small molecules to a living cell? And he said, well, we know about stars. We'll look at those videos. He never comments because he has no idea. He says it's a good model, but he has no idea. We'll expose all of this on Lee Cronin. And then he talks a lot about his own work in Origin of Life, the types of things that Dave loves to read and pull little quotes out. He tells me I quote mine. We'll see Dave's quotes. When I look right at the data, I go right at the data, not just what they write. And I'll show that Lee Cronin's work in Origin of Life is nonsense. It has nothing to do with the origin of life, certainly not life as we know it. Amazingly, Lee Cronin knows nothing about organic chemistry. That's not my opinion. That's somebody else says that I think Lee Cronin himself would even respect.
I'm an inorganic chemist, so I don't know any organic chemistry.
Lee, you don't know any organic chemistry. I wouldn't have used such strong words, but you said it yourself. I'll teach you today. If you had watched my series, you might have learned something. I'll also address his cited experts, Joshua Swamidass, and I'll talk about Jack Sostek, but he uses their data. I want to thank Dave for bringing in these experts because now I can go right after these experts and show their work, their very own work and their own words, and talk about how Origin of Life from the very researchers themselves, not just YouTubers getting it wrong, the very researchers themselves look at the data and they see one thing and they write another. Their data exposes it and they write another.
Well, he didn't take kindly to it, so he decided to make a 14-part series about how dumb I am.
And he made a 14-part series about how dumb I am.
Dave is dumb, Dave is dumb, Dave is dumb every 10 seconds. And it's like,
he said those words. I haven't even watched this 14-part series, but did he kind of say those words? Or you
not
act
dumb.
like you're dumb?
He calls me clueless. He has no idea what he's talking about.
Dave says that I talked about how dumb he was. No way. I never talked about how dumb he was. I never commented on his intellect. I crossed this out because I don't think anybody here is stupid. That's not a question of stupidity. It's just a lack of knowledge. And I think that there's just a lack of knowledge that people presume with great confidence. They have very high confidence. In another way, Dave is a victim. Dave is a victim. Dave Farina is a victim of the nonsense that these people are putting out there. And that's what we're going to expose today. If Dave is so confident about his work, why does he throttle the discussion that goes on under his videos? So his videos, people comment, but if they comment and they point things out that are against what he said, he deletes it.
I block very liberally because I just don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to get into a back and forth that lasts a week with 100 different people simultaneously. I'm just not going to deal with it. This channel is my space. And if I want to block or if I want to delete spam comments or if I want to do any of that stuff, that's my choice and I do that. And I don't care what people say about that.
Well, apparently he does care about it because he whined and total windbag Dave Farina is. But he got called out. Did anybody watch that debate with Farina? It was about a month ago with James Tour. James Tour is writing all over the chalkboard, chemical compounds, making all the correct moves. And Dave Farina, all he was doing was reading off of papers that other people have written. And he doesn't even understand that the papers that other people have written, he wouldn't know how to read it anyway. So the bottom line is with, a lot of these papers that are written, the abstract means nothing. So when you read, it's kind of like an introduction to a book where it goes through all, who edited the book and who did all this and that's all the abstract really is. Tells you baloney about what's inside the paper. And it's supposed to be a synopsis of the whole experiment. However, they hide the details in the actual paper way down, and they make the paper 26 pages long so you can't read it properly. And the average person, all they do is they read the abstract, and that would be like a Mark Reed, and that would be like a Taylor Snake guy, and that would be like most of the atheists that are on any of the chat boards. They don't read the actual whole paper. I don't know what Mark Reed does, but for one thing, Mark Reed is pretty much a pedantic liar. He we they always say the we thing. However, he said he taught some classes. I don't know what he taught in, but the fallacy that goes on with them saying, I have the papers. They only read the abstract thinking that is just a combined overall view. It's not. Abstracts have little to do with anything that the paper is. You have to actually read all 26 pages, generally in Pica 9, of the paper, because they don't want you actually finding out that they did nothing and they found nothing, but they proclaim that they knew something. I believe I showed all of you the thing from Lenski. Did I show all of you guys that? Yeah, so I'll go back to the movie now.
What do you say to that? Would you be interested in having a one-on-one conversation with him if he was willing to do so?
Oh, I would love that. I mean, he seems like a fine young man. I'd love to get together with him. We'll have a live stream, so nobody's going to edit that. I will pay to have him fly to Houston. I'll buy his ticket to Houston, and I'll put him up either at a hotel, or if he wants, he can stay in my home. We have a guest room. He can have dinner with me and my wife and my family, and tell us all about himself. Let's start looking at the primordial soup. This is something where Dave says that the primordial soup model is only taught to 8th graders, not in any advanced textbook. When one looks at a typical textbook, one will see some prehistoric pond and molecules, and those molecules coming together and forming a cell, and those cells coming together and some slithering creature coming out of this pond. That is fallacious. There is no truth in that.
This is one version of a talking point Jim brings up a lot. He hates how in some textbooks you see a primordial soup of molecules, some lightning, and then all of a sudden a cell is there, and then maybe a lizard crawling onto land or something like that. To call this a complete view of abiogenesis and evolution would be absurd, but absolutely no one proposes this. This is something that a lot of creationists do. They refer to what is very obviously a textbook meant for middle school students and pretend it represents the pinnacle of scientific thought on the matter. 6th graders have zero capacity to understand biochemistry, so their textbook doesn't have any biochemistry in it. A college-level textbook will not look like this, so this is a dishonest talking point.
Here's all of them that are mentioning the primordial soup or the hot smelly soup model. All of them mention it. Here's more. And this isn't all of them. This is just all that I could compile with the help of Casey Luskin, who is another Team Jesus person, as Dave Farina would call him, and therefore wants to discount whatever he says. But I'll tell you, Dave, Team Jesus people keep eating your lunch.
Dr. Tour has actually done the right thing here in being honest, whereas Dave Farina is not honest. And the reason he's not honest is because he doesn't want to lose his money that he gets off of his channel. He has over 2 million viewers or something like that, actual subscribers. He makes a lot of money, Dave Farina. He's very good at what he does on YouTube. He is not a scientist. He is not a professor. I think he went to a junior high school, barely got through high school, as I recall somebody talking about it, but he actually just went and got an associate's degree, and he doesn't have a master's degree. He was an assistant teacher or something like that at the community high school or sorry, the community college. And but see how you can play on YouTube. And you also get your fans that follow. I think I'm kind of different than most people. I don't play a game. My dad always said, and my grandfather always said, just tell them how it is. If they don't like it, that's too bad. You told them the truth. And that's what Dr. Tour is doing right now. He's telling everybody the truth on what's actually going on. So let me continue.
Call this a complete view of abiogenesis and evolution would be absurd, but absolutely no one proposes this. This is something that a lot of creationists do. They refer to what is very obviously a textbook meant for middle school students and pretend it represents the pinnacle of scientific thought on the matter. Sixth graders have zero capacity to understand biochemistry, so their textbook doesn't have any biochemistry in it. A college level textbook will not look like this, so this is a dishonest talking point.
And that is not actually true by Mr. Farina. The reason being is that all the way from, I think they get into it in the second grade now, maybe even the first. Second grade, they have like a science thing, but it's not a very big book. It's not. However, if you saw my video previously on the $10 billion in revenue means what you put in your pocket. $10 billion, that the students paid for from kindergarten up to year 12, and then off into college. $10 billion. That's selling a lot of these science books, and not a lot of them are different from the other ones. So what you learned in second grade is pretty much the same as third grade, fourth grade. Just a few differences. It's not until you get to the 8th or 9th grade that you're actually getting into maybe some experiments, mixing some chemicals together. The potassium in the water in the swimming pool by our science teacher in high school is great. But the most things that are taught in science books are the evolution at the very beginning, and there's not really much else. So I will continue with the video.
All of them that are mentioning the primordial soup or the hot smelly soup model. All of them mention it. Here's more. And this isn't all of them. This is just all that I could compile with the help of Casey Luskin, who is another Team Jesus person, as Dave Farina would call him, and therefore wants to discount whatever he says. But I'll tell you, Dave, Team Jesus people keep eating your lunch. Let's hear how Lee Cronin explains going from small molecules in a pond to a living cell, primordial soup model.
Okay, so there was some kind of primordial soup billions of years ago on the surface of Earth. Chemicals swimming around, maybe bolts of lightning going off, and somehow something happened, and poof, you've got your first sort of very simple cell or something swimming around in the ocean. Okay, that's my GCSE vague recollection of what might have been explained as how life got here.
And they still explain it like this in college. There's no difference because of the the test with beakers and all that with the two guys that falsified the primordial soup. Maybe you guys can help me out. Just had a total brain freeze because of the computer not working properly. But the that test brought nothing but tar and some left-handed amino acids, but the amino acids were already there. It wasn't anything, special. And they showed that they can't, the Miller and Urey experiment, Miller and Urey were just joking around pretty much. It wasn't like they put anything special together. All they did was build up a lot of glass tubes and some, boiled some water and some things together to make sure that it went. But the air that they pumped into it the second time is the one that got them the left-handed amino acids, which is nothing. Oh, it's something, but it's nothing. It would kill you. So anyway, we'll continue with this. But Lee Cronin is, as I said before, he's a deviant. He got in this position for power, and that is power and money. That's all it is.
Is that view essentially correct or fundamentally wrong? What's the big problem that people have? Why they haven't, up till now at least, been able to give a sort of naturalistic scientific explanation for how all those right bits got together to create life?
So that was Justin's comment, and he was asking that of Lee Cronin, who is an origin of life researcher, one of the top well-known ones. And here's what Lee said.
So a really important. So you're not wrong. Your GCSE chemistry is not too bad at all.
Whoa! You're not wrong?
Wow, could you cut him off a little faster, James? Literally the very next word he says is but, to qualify and contextualize this first phrase.
Okay, so I cut him off because he doesn't say anything. He absolutely doesn't start explaining anything, but we'll just let him speak.
You're not wrong. Your GCSE chemistry is not too bad at all. But planet Earth wasn't just this magic melting pot of magical chemicals. It's the same planet now.
Why are you so afraid to let your viewers hear Lee speak? Well, he's going to talk for a bit right now, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, so the way that was that audio was cut was just outrageous, because what I was trying to do was make a connection with the interviewer to say, yeah, anyone with basic chemistry can start to understand the consequences of evolution. And basically all I was saying is that very basic chemistry introduces the concept of molecules and reactions and complexity. And with those ideas together and some time, you are able to get to evolution. That is what the current scientific consensus is saying. It's what all the experiments are showing. And what James was trying to do is to misquote me as to make some kind of reverse psychological connotation.
So you see, he never told us. He never told us. He says that this is current scientific consensus. You got it right on that, Lee. That's current scientific consensus, which I don't go for. And you want everybody to start following you like you're the Pied Piper? I'm going to expose this for what it is. You talk about scientific consensus. Galileo should have followed scientific consensus if it were your decision, right? No, sometimes things have to be said, and that's what I'm doing. I don't care what the scientific consensus is. You didn't explain. He gave you the chance to explain. You didn't do it on Brierley's program. He gave you the chance to explain yourself here. You didn't do it here. Well, maybe I cut you off too quickly. Let's give you another chance. Maybe in another video you might have done this.
You're not wrong. Your GCSE chemistry is not too bad at all. But planet Earth wasn't just this magic melting pot of magical chemicals. It's the same planet now, but it's got life on it. And the problem we have with looking for life on Earth right now, the origin of life, is there's already populated by our current biology.
Yes.
So cells emerged and created an ecosystem, and there's DNA and RNA and bacteria all over the planet. And they have terraformed the planet from bacterial mats in the ocean to human beings burning forests, building aeroplanes, runways. So it's very difficult to go back and ask, where did life come from when life is polluting? So that's the first point.
Life is polluting. There's nothing new. Nobody has found anything new other than what has been discovered deep down in the oceans that we cannot get to. We cannot get down into the Mariana Trench to find out what's there, but an octopus can get down there in no trouble. A whale can get down there in no trouble. Most fish don't have any trouble at 12 miles deep in the sea. And the funny part about what this guy is saying is just a bunch of gas. He might as well just drank a few beers and had some pasta, because it's coming out both ends. That gas, it's coming out both ends.
But the second point, I would say that actually there is nothing magical about the emergence of life. It's really simple. And what we've got to try and do, and I really like, again, coming back to the prize and the idea of where
life is really simple. Yeah, because you have all the attachments. It's like if you go to the secondhand store and you buy a used vacuum cleaner, it doesn't have all the attachments. So basically you're stuck with just using the regular part of the vacuum, but you don't have the handle that's going to be able to get into the smaller areas that you can get. And it would be like in a human being getting together, we have all the attachments. Everything's ready to go for life. A man and woman get together, they have children, but a lot of things are getting worse because of certain things that people have finagled with. And it has a lot to do with pharmaceutical sales. It has a lot to do with what you're doing in this realm that you're having. I bet you that's a $120 shirt you're wearing. I have those. I have those $120 shirts, but here's the thing. $120 to you versus the average person that you're teaching is incredibly a long distance away. So what you're doing is you're just living off the fat of the youngsters that come in to be your lab assistants. You're living off that, and now you can tout anything you want because you're not going to be held accountable for it. Well, that day of accountability is coming very soon.
Where does information come from? Universes without life are universes without information. Okay, and I think Perry and I really agree on that point, but I'll let him comment on that in a moment. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to produce a system, a chemical system that produces its own context. Now, I don't like that word, and your listeners are probably like, what do you mean by that? And it's a bit like, what happens is the chemistry is random, okay, until a chance event, and that's not a lucky event. That means an improbable event on a probability distribution. Like if I play cards, I might get a royal flush, but I'd have to calculate how long I have to play randomly.
Yeah.
Once I've got that royal flush doesn't mean to anyone unless I'm playing cards.
Yeah.
But suddenly, if that royal flush itself created the player to recognize royal flush, you have a feedback loop. So actually, when you then remove the need for magic random, it's any random.
Okay.
Any random event gets trapped in a bubble, in a rock. And that then allows to another random event to be slightly less random because of what's in that rock. Because you've taken a coin and you've weighted it, so you get slightly more heads and tails. And then that coin is able to make other coins that are slightly more heads and tails. Before you know it, you're only flicking heads. So what you can do is you can do a model and show how many times do I need that to happen for I always go from heads and tails evens to always getting heads. And that type of discussion is how we're creating experiments to create life.
Okay, you're flipping coins, you got royal flushes. Tell me the chemistry. You're a chemist. Tell us the chemistry. How does this happen? No royal flushes. Just bring me through the chemistry here. You think people shouldn't get frustrated about your mumbo jumbo nonsense? This is characteristic of Origin of Life, folks. It's not just Lee Cronin. He's one of many. You try to pin him down, and he doesn't say it.
This mild-mannered guy is just, he doesn't live in that realm. Let's just say these Lee Cronins and all the others that I've been talking about for days, they're all decrepit. They're all in it. And they're not truthful because they can't even give you the chemical compound of even pond scum. I mean, you'd think that you'd be able to turn it into some sort of a, what do you call it, acronym, right? Put an acronym, together. Bad water is, whatever. So you call it BOA or something like that. And then it becomes easier to understand what it is. But he's exactly right about Lee Cronin. The guy is definitely just living out his days, collecting his millions of dollars a year from grant money, which is off the taxpayer's back. And I, being a taxpayer, am paying for that. Now, did I get some government grants back in the past? Yes, I did. What did I do with it? You know, you take some as a salary, but it wasn't a lot. Just let you know that.
Well, let's see. Let's give him another chance.
I make salad dressing a lot in my lab. And in fact, salad dressing is probably the most important thing for the origin of life. That is oil in water.
Okay.
What happens when you shake oil in water? You get bubbles form spontaneously. Some molecules can dissolve in those bubbles in different ways. And each bubble has a different set of molecules in them. And you can fingerprint that using a device, similar to what you'd maybe test your blood to look at.
Okay.
So if every droplet is different, suddenly you have individuals. If individuals are now interacting in those droplets all bashing around in that salad dressing, they can compete with each other, they can cooperate together, and they can start to record stuff.
But we're still talking at this point about inorganic chemistry, right?
Correct.
So and I suppose that the thing I'm trying to get my head around is it feels like there's a big difference between a chemical which has no sort of teleology, that it just is what it is, and a system which kind of has this trajectory, if you like, to start replicating. And
so that's a really important point you're making. So for me, teleology is a word I only learned a few months ago, but actually I now know what it means, so I can talk to you. So I would say, like, if I design a fork to pick up something, I know it's a fork. But if I observe a fork arising and I look at the pathway assembly of the fork, I'd say, well, actually it's below my threshold, it could have emerged, but an agency built that fork when I can discern a number of features. So what I mean is, chemistry is at the border between a teleological, if that's a word, and teleological system. And when the chemistry is able to create, it basically is able to affect itself in the future, that then becomes teleological.
Right. It crosses over from inorganic to organic.
Exactly. And that's really the exciting discovery we're trying to make. Perry wants to pay for. No, I mean that in a sense, not just my lab, but anyone's lab competing. He wants to see, and I'm putting this precisely so he can challenge, and Dennis can challenge, that a self-generating system that's teleologically generating objects. And what you're saying is like, oh boy, DNA, we're convinced it evolves, but how did that happen?
Sure.
And I would say evolution occurs firstly in bubbles, all right, over the bubble. So you imagine like a massive system, disorganized chemistry persisting. As that persists over time, it has to compress those features and stop errors creeping in. And what happens over time is polymers get formed. So what is a polymer? Polymer is when two ping pong balls, if you like, are able to come together and rather than bounce off one another, they connect. And then it's two ping pong balls connected together. So you have double the information before and so on. And you get the kind of daisy chaining.
It's bubbles. It's all about bubbles, really, bubbles. You get polymers. How do you do the chemistry to get the polymers? This is so exacting. We're going to go through this. We're going to show the polymers that you've made are garbage. Garbage. They're not proteins. They're not what you want. It doesn't give you what you want. This is what I'm talking about. It's just, this is so painful. Have you had enough? You've probably had enough of Lee Cronin. But how about just give me one proposal? You don't have to tell us how it happened. That's not what I'm asking for. Is how might it have happened that you substantiate the primordial soup model? How might it have happened?
Just sketch out the big picture here, because a lot of people assume, maybe they learned this in GCSE biology or something, but so there was some kind of primordial soup billions of years ago on the surface of Earth, chemicals swimming around, maybe bolts of lightning going off, and somehow something happened and poof, you've got your first very simple cell or something swimming around in the ocean. Is that view essentially correct or fundamentally wrong?
So you're not wrong. Your GCSE chemistry is not too bad at all.
You asked Lee, you said, is
that
this
view essentially correct or fundamentally wrong?
Unquote. And Lee said,
you're not wrong. Your GCSE chemistry is not too bad at all.
And I'm like, what? Where is the evidence for this? And I'm like, this is the type of extrapolation that I'm talking about from one of the premier people in the world in Origin of Life. And I'm saying, okay, you got evidence for me? Help me. Give me the evidence for that, Lee. Give me the evidence. I'd love to have it.
It's clear that chemicals on Earth before life were simpler because there was no machinery to make chemicals.
the debate that I think you're digging into a debate that Origin of Life people have, that I was giving just in a GCSE, not a degree in chemistry, and that I don't care whether the atmosphere is oxidizing or reducing. We simply don't know. We can look at the fossil record, the geological record, so on and so forth, and ask those questions. However, from meteorites that we have from the solar system, from where the birth of the solar system is, we know what type of chemicals are present. And basically, when you look at, say, Murchison or other meteorites, carbonaceous chondrites, we find very simple organic molecules with some nitrogen and oxygen, some carbon, some hydrogen, maybe a bit of sulfur, the elements that we'd expect we find on Earth, very simple versions. So all I was saying was that. Now, I think that, Jim, you've got to be careful here because you are trying to build a narrative. And building narratives and what I'm not interested in. His GCSE chemistry was fine. GCSE high school chemistry. Was there simple chemistry on Earth? Was there some energy on Earth? All those things. To the best of our knowledge, yes, there was energy. There was a lot of things going on. There's a great deal of evidence for the late heavy bombardment and all that stuff. But if you want concrete evidence, you can get meteors that are 4.7 billion years old, which have simple chemistry on them. And I think the thing that you're maybe creating a straw man here, because I think we basically agree that in the past, chemistry looks to have been simpler. We have seen no evidence of complex chemistry emerging before life on Earth. And complex, I would say, large molecules that you can hold in your hand, maybe that you can manufacture in your lab. And there is good evidence for that. There's plenty of peer-reviewed publications which talk about that information. Now, it doesn't suggest, there is not evidence for what the lifetime is of erasure and the half-life of that complexity. However, we are beginning through very radioactive carbon dating, heavy atom carbon dating, and looking at the entropy of material, the disorder of the material, to kind of piece together if there was something complex there. But that is a very, very hard problem. So I disagree with you that Justin's chemistry is just fine. I don't know what the precise nature of that is, and maybe what you're getting at is some Origin of Life people says, look, it was reducing, then it was oxidizing, then there was phosphorus, and then there was sugar, and there was RNA. No, I would agree with you, there is no evidence about what sequence of small molecules were there, but was there a super simple molecules there on Earth at the beginning? Yes. And we can trace it back to the Big Bang, where we have proof that there was a Big Bang, and then we have stars forming, and those stars explode. And when those stars explode, they produce elements in their elemental form. And when they accrete on a planet, they then gain complexity.
Okay. Yes. Feel free to respond there, Jim.
Okay. So Lee, that's not what you said, and that's not what you put forward. I agree. We have small molecules that might be oxidizing.
I did not say anything else. That's exactly what I said. Justin said, was there a prebiotic soup? And I said, yes, the evidence says so.
No, and Justin said, then cells came forth, life came forth from that. All right. So
that is indeed
you were a little bit loose on that. Let's get more specific. But what I'm saying is, you are the authority here. When you tell him, he asked you specifically, he says there was a primordial soup, and life came forth, and your very simple cells came forth from this. We have no evidence how this thing happened. Lots of small molecules. A cell's pretty complex.
We don't know how it happened, but the evidence on Earth says in the fossil record that life appeared very, very quickly, after the late heavy bombardment. So that is evidence in the fossil record that is not disputable. I think we both agree, planet Earth formed, rocks, simple chemistry, no life. Right? We don't know all the details of that, but then within a few 100 million years, there's evidence in the fossil record that life formed, simple cellular life. Those two facts are not, as far as I know, disputed by
those are not contestable. How we got from the point A to point B?
Absolutely, but I did not say we knew.
So we're agree. You and I agree, Lee, that how we got from the simple molecules to life, it happened, but we don't know how.
Exactly.
If you're enjoying this series, give us a thumbs up and click the subscribe button, and that way you'll hear when we're coming out with new videos. There are no salaried employees in this organization. All the accounting, all the legal
All right, guys. Well, it's not quite what I wanted to do. I got kind of upset about the computer. I'm trying to see if something's working here. Hey, Nick, how are you? So there's yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that are going on outside our daily lives that are actually affecting our daily lives. I don't know if I ever told you guys my story about the NIH, all of that about my son. But yeah, it's really crazy. I'll tell you about that later. It's not really long and drawn out, but if I hadn't had some medical background because my father was a medical physician, I would have been just like a regular civilian and gone along with it, and my son would be dead now. But because what they were telling me at the hospital just didn't make any sense whatsoever, I called my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, this is sounding kind of weird because they're wanting to do something to him. They wanted to take a biopsy of his lung, but they wanted to open up his rib cage. And at the time, he was only 8.5, turning 9. And if you open up the rib cage at that age, it will affect later on your rib cage because it heals back with a lot of scar tissue, and you'll have a lot of trouble, especially with breakage of other parts of your sternum. If you're playing football, even baseball, say you're sliding into second base or diving for a ball. And I'll get into it later, but so the CDC was sent up, and that's where I'll end this conversation, but that's kind of like a teaser for the next time, as I'm getting on to 2 hours now. But yeah, it's I've just seen a lot. And a lot of people don't believe me. I was on Praise I Am's channel last night, and Big Mama's just taken after me because I told them the truth of what happened during the Civil War in the United States, the North versus the South. It was all because of the economic pressures that were put onto the North, because the South had worked out a deal with Great Britain and France to ship their cotton there at a higher cost than the North was paying for their cotton. And that's what really started the Civil War. And I'm not a revisionist. It's just when you look into it and you stop reading these novels like Gone with the Wind and all these things, North and South, and look up Boone Plantation, Boone Plantation in Charlotte, South Carolina. So the interesting thing about that is that it has been used in every Civil War movie but a couple in the last half century. So anytime you see the video of them going down the long trail with the oak trees making a canopy over the driveway as it goes in, and then it opens up to the mansion, that's Boone Plantation. And I'll tell you the rest of the story on that one later. But there's I've been fortunate. My dad always made sure we knew history, always knew to question things that weren't sounding right, just to make sure that you had a definite grasp on what was going to be done. And that's how he treated his medical practice. He told the people straight out. He didn't cut any corners. He told them, look, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'll lose a patient. So what's in it for you is in it for me. You come to me, I make you better. But now what happens when you go to a doctor? That's gone. They want you, I have to see you in 3 weeks. Oh, we can't do that now. We'll see you in another 3 weeks, another 3 weeks, another 3 weeks. And that's because it's all run by the pharmaceutical industry. It's run by large corporations that are not out for your health. And that's where this Lee Cronin guy comes into. Oh, yeah, it's just, some lightning hit and everything. It was primordial soup. And he can't even tell you what the chemical base was, because a doctor cannot be a doctor anymore. They're held too tight by administrations. It's horrible. And they've gotten rid of private practice. The malpractice insurance is just through the roof, unless you work for a Kaiser Permanente or you work for some Blue Cross Blue Shield run system or whatever. And that's what they do. You go into the doctor, oh, see you in 3 weeks. And that's tragedy, because they're not giving you a simple, because they can only a very simple program, because they only have 10 to 15 minutes with you, because they have to see X a number of patients a day, or else they get docked on their pay or they'll be let go. And just think about it, going to 8 years of college, or 4 years of the college, then 8 years of medical school. I think it's cut down to 6 years now from majority, unless you're going to be an EMT or something like that. But you go through medical school and you learn your practice, whether it be internal medicine or you're a surgeon or whatever field you're going into, to help somebody to survive and be better. There are cancer medications out there. Some are homeopath and some are not, that are very good for cancer, and they won't let you know. There's a guy out of Texas. He was sued by the oh goodness gracious, I forget, some pharmaceutical company or something like that. I don't know how it worked out. I have to look at the documents again. But he actually had live brain cancer. I mean, tumors in the brain. He reduced those to nothing. And it was all simple stuff. It was just stuff you can find, without having to go too far away, to find a special root that works very well. And he put together some things that within 3 weeks of using it, they could tell the difference. I mean, we're talking about tumors on the face and cancerous tumors that would just reduce to nothing and be gone and never come back again. They're not recurrent. So if you know anything about cell biology, how the cell breaks down glucose, mitochondria needs it in order to run the ATP and enzyme triphosphate. And it basically, glucose is what your body runs off of, but they don't want you to have the sugar, but you don't really want the CNH sugar or the white sugar because it's been treated by a chemical. So you'd have the raw sugar, but you're not allowed to have it because you're type 2 diabetic or whatever. But what happens is, and it's happened a lot more recently, is that you have the white blood cells and you have the red blood cells. Okay, they're both side, basically the blood the blood cells go through your bloodstream. White blood cells are also in your bloodstream, but those are your security guards, if you will. And what happens is a cell, just a regular cell, it could be a skin cell, it could be a liver cell, it could be a kidney cell, it could be a lung cell, because they're all different cells. Your skin cell is not the same as your kidney cell or your liver cell, or even the cell that's inside your intestine, okay? Because that's a muscular cell, the way it's made out. So muscle cells, a lot of people don't know that you can have a muscle that has 5 nuclei in one cell, one muscle cell. You can have more than that sometimes, depends on how much you work out. It's a different thing, and that uses a lot of glucose in your body to make stuff. So anyway, I'll get back to the thing where cancer is. So like a leukemia or something like that, it's where, I don't know if anybody knows in this chat about programmed cell death. That's a real thing. PCD, programmed cell death. So a skin cell will last maybe sometimes 10 days to 14 days, and then it flakes off. That's why, a lot of the dust in homes is skin cells that are flakes of skin. And then you have, your muscle cells and things like that. Well, muscle cells, if one goes rogue, okay, which means that the controlled death of that cell, programmed cell death, doesn't happen. So the switch is broken and it doesn't go away. What it then does is it becomes its own creature searching for food, and it will eat on human flesh. It will eat other cells, kind of like a white blood cell will. Well, then what happens is that a white blood cell comes in and it doesn't hear any danger because he still has the signal. These are all electric signals and chemical signals that are used by your cells through the bloodstream. So it's kind of like a guy that's gone like a Mission Impossible. He's gone rogue, and now he has to fight and battle his way out of the country that he's in. So let's look at that as your cancer cell, right? So he's gone rogue, and now he's killing all these people in order to get out of that country where he can be safe outside that country. The cell will just keep eating because it needs to feed on things, and then it will create other cells as it splits. And so you start from one cell and you go all the way to billions of cells, trillions of cells that then will eat on flesh and things like that in your body. And that is cancer. And that's how it works. That's what we studied in university. And it is a true thing. They know about it, but they don't care about it, because when you go in to get your treatment for cancer, whether you have insurance or not, it's going to cost $2,500 a visit. Chemotherapy is a money maker. It's a money maker. And yeah, if you're a doctor and you come up with something, the company that you work for, it's Kaiser Permanente, or if it's Blue Cross Blue Shield or whoever you're working for, they take it from you. You are no longer your own doctor. My dad was his own doctor, and he passed away, basically working his fingers to the bone as a private practitioner. He would not go and work for these groups because he wanted to treat people medically well. And that's why he talked me out of medical school. He goes, you won't make it. You're not the type of personality. You're going to blow it. You're going to be thrown in jail. Something's going to happen to you because you don't like it. And I scored 95 percentile on the MCATs. And I'm going, so what should I do today? He goes, you had businesses before. You're good at business. I suck at business. You're good at business. So I started running his doctor's office business-wise before any of the Instagram and advertisement. We did the yellow pages very well, where it was just the yellow pages where you could get a colored one, or you could get the gray stencil on the yellow page. And so we did something basically new. Anybody who has insurance, new patients are free. So you get a free checkup. 2,000 new patients came in 1 month. And that's when I started and said, I'm not going to be a doctor, but do I know a little bit about it? Yeah. So anyway, that's where I'm going to end this. My dad was not about the money. He was about healing people. And that's what we need to be with sharing the Lord Jesus Christ. There's a lot of dead people out there. We run into them everywhere. Anytime there's some sort of a debate with some atheist, like a Jake Snake or whatever the heck he wants to call himself, they have followers that come in to stand up for him in the chat. What I recommend for anybody who's listening to this video, do not respond to those people. Just to their arguments. Just say the Lord loves you. Just type that in and say the Lord loves you. I've come to that conclusion last night, that there are people out there that have their intention to ruin your day. And why they apostatize to a born again believer trying to take their faith away, which isn't going to happen anyway. But why are they, proselytizing all of this? Oh, there is no God. Why do they have to tell? Oh, there's no God. You're like, you really think I'm an idiot to follow Zeus? Really? No, I have a living God that lives and breathed here on earth, and we will see him one day, where every knee will bow and every tongue confess Jesus Christ is Lord. And there is going to be a day not too far away, and we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Tomorrow is the next day, and we're not guaranteed that. Yet atheists think, oh, I'm going to be worm food. So, make as much money and, do everything to somebody else to climb that ladder, pull them down, untie their shoelace or whatever you need to do to get ahead, because this is the only life you're going to have. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you're in for a big surprise. If you think you're just going to be some worm food living in the ground, there's eternity in the human soul. Soul can't be killed. So you either go upstairs or downstairs. You make the decision. You want to live in the basement or you want to live in the penthouse? Anyway, I'm going to end it there. Thank you all for there. Brother Timothy, Unique. We'll see if you guys check in, check out, because I think I gave everybody but Unique a moderator thing. So I'm not sure. I'll have to recheck on that. And, God bless you guys. I'm going to do another one tomorrow. I have it set up for tomorrow about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. And I'll be doing it after church. If anybody wants to come into the chat at any time, I'm more than welcome anybody in here, as long as they're not going to argue about some doctrine or anything like that. We'll keep on the same page. And I don't want to get in the position of where I understand we have to be kind to those that are without Jesus. But last night on Praise's channel, this guy came in and every other word was an F word. And he just wouldn't stop talking about, doing drugs and all this. I understand, if you had a past life in it, but if you're bragging about it today that you're doing drugs, that's somebody that just needs to go away and come back humbly instead of being prideful about what you did. That totally, just totally is off base. Number one. Number two, pharmakia is where we get the word for our drugs, right? And that has to do with all the bad things the witches brew and whatnot. And a lot of those things I understand people get hooked on. But if you look at a lot of the missions and places that take care of drug abusers and get them off those drugs, it's only through the Lord Jesus Christ. There's some people that don't believe in Jesus that have come off of drugs for whatever reason. But when they're preaching the Lord Jesus Christ, he makes you a new creature. And unless you have done it, you don't understand what that new creature is. Sometimes we still have ill thoughts. Sometimes we wish we could do things, but there's something that just taps you on the back of the shoulder and says, hey, that's why there's nail imprints, feet imprints, prints on his head from the thorns. So you don't have to. Anyway, gonna shut it down. Praise the Lord. Oof. Just wish we could save everybody. All right. Talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks.
No change may pull us apart. I'll get us back together at heart, baby. Don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me. Will you stand above me and look my way and never love me? Rain keeps falling down, down, down. Won't you recognize me? Call my name, walk on by. The rain keeps falling down. Hey, 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 hey! Watch it! Don't you try and pretend it's my feeling. Will win in the end. I won't harm you or touch your defenses. Vanity, insecurity. Don't you forget about me. I'll be alone, dancing, and you know it, baby. Going to take you apart. I'll put us back together at heart, baby. Don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me. As you walk on by, will you call my name? As you walk on by, will you call my name? As you walk on by. As you walk on by, will you walk on by? Will you walk away? Come on, call my name. Come on, call my name. Will you call my name? Say la, 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 when you walk on by, would you call my name? As you walk on by, would you call my name? When you walk on by, oh yeah. Come on, call my name. Would you walk on by? Baby, call my name. When you walk on by, Lord, would you call my name?
Hey, Kevin, you're a little bit late. I'm shutting it down right now. Good to see you. I'll do another one tomorrow. And all right, Unique, I'm out. Shutting the doors in 3, 2, 1. Good day.